from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talking Catholic. This is actually Mike Bress, not Mike Walsh, and I'm doing my first official intro because today is a special day. I have a special partner with me, someone I talk to all the time in the office, but never recorded conversation, and that is the award-winning Pete Sanchez. Pete, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Mike. What a pleasure to be here with you. You're right. We normally talk. We just talk books.
Yeah.
That's a lot of books.
A lot of books. A lot of Phillies.
Yeah, Phillies. Hey, they pulled it off.
They did yesterday. Yeah. That was exciting. But now we're doing it and technically getting paid for it. And on recording. So that's
is this
good.
heaven, Mike?
This might be. This might be.
I just got to say, I want to compliment you on your great intro. I loved it. You got such a good radio voice.
Thank you. I've always said I have a face for radio, so it works out.
You said it, not me. You said it. Just let the record show.
Yes.
But no, just what a pleasure.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for today. I mean, we're gonna get to our guests in a second and talk a topic that both you and I enjoy talking about outside the podcast. So it's fun to do it here.
Yeah.
But we've had a busy, I would say overall, a very busy summer for both of us. But it's culminating in some busy work this week. We're recording this in sort of this third week in August, right around towards the end. And we just got done with a pretty big edition of the paper. Am I right?
Yeah, we got done. Well, it's coming out this weekend or this week, the back to school issue, the annual back to school issue, all the excitement getting ready for the new school year. And Mike, thanks for your help with everything. I know one of the things we did is we have a nice photo collage of what happened in the schools over the summer. There were a lot of camps. They were fun. I'm thinking bubbles, sharks, rockets, like, oh my.
Yes, absolutely.
And thanks for your help with that. And then we even let the mascots of our schools have their say.
Yeah, we did. That was a fun little thing that Jen and I talked about. And I believe, Pete, you were on the conversation as well. We were thinking we like to do those sort of, in our parlance, the mugs and quotes section of the paper, especially during a lot of the school editions. And I just, thought, how fun would it be if we sort of personified the mascots, given that technically they don't talk, a lot of them anyway, if they're good ones, they don't talk much like the Fanatic or any of or Swoop or any of the good ones locally. They never, but they've got a lot to say. So I feel like this was a opportunity for them to talk, but a lot of great stories. It was a lot of fun. I mean, this has been, a busy year, a busy summer for us. We just got through some of our introductory meetings. I was at the new teacher orientation yesterday, and that was really exciting. You could see all the new teachers are excited to get started. We had some great sessions with our staff in our office, and we even did an article which was just wonderful about some of the efforts that our office did with the schools to get those new teachers, which was exciting to see sort of it come full circle for me to see some of the folks that I helped get jobs, in some respects. So
that was a great story too.
Yeah.
Just how the pipeline and connecting people for the greater good.
Yeah.
And
then it doesn't stop for us, Pete.
No, I mean, it's just it's a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
But no, it's a good hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Then excitement, Bishop Williams, coadjutor Bishop of the Diocese of Camden, is arriving, and all that warmth and in his spirit that he's bringing to us. And, of course, we'll look forward to him and Bishop Sullivan, I think, with the Masses of the Holy Spirit, too, coming up.
Yeah, we'll have some time. We'll have back to school the week of Labor Day. We have a couple of cool school openings. We have one of our schools that's opening a new building, which will be exciting. And then just having the kids back. I know we're starting, at least at home, we're starting the prep of getting up early again.
Oh, my gosh.
And the school supplies are covering our dining room table and everything. So that's an exciting time. And then, then we have, Bishop Williams coming in, and then at the end of September is the Masses of the Holy Spirit with all of our high schools, and we just keep rolling, So it's an exciting time. I mean, I love doing this. I love going around to our schools. I, love meeting with them, love hearing about what goals they have, what school, what kind of things they have planned for the year. And then I'll blink and it'll be June, and you and I will be talking about graduation coverage.
Oh my gosh, I know. And it's funny you mentioned, getting ready for school, because one of my good friends, he's a guidance counselor in one of our Catholic schools. Okay. And every year he talks about, because he's a sandal guy, in the summer that's all he is, sandals. And I think for the month before he starts, he has to break in the shoes. Because he's got to get them in. I'm like, he already told me, he said, Pete, the shoes are on. Like the dress shoes. He's like, I've stopped with the sandals. I'm like, oh no, now it's getting serious.
Well, that's one of the funny things, and I think this is one of the things people. My wife is a public school teacher, and everyone thinks, well, they don't do anything in the summertime, or the whole school is shut down. But in reality, especially the principals and some of the staff, they're there every day, but they do have a casual nature that they can have there. And, I'll walk in for a summer meeting in my shirt and tie, in my dress attire, and they're in flip flops, sandals, and, or t-shirt and shorts. I'm like, I am definitely overdressed for this, this meeting. I got to start dressing better.
Yeah.
So exciting times, and we're excited for it, and we're excited for our guests today, because talking about back to school, talking about the fall coming up. I mean, I'm ready for the cooler temperatures. We, again, on the date of this recording, it's actually been fairly pleasant outside. A little taste of what we're going to get in the fall. So, who do we have here with us today, Pete?
We here have Mark Zimmaro. How do you pronounce your name? Zimmaro?
You're right either way, according to different sides of the family.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Go with what you feel.
Well, you've been a long time sports writer for us. Great. Good. And not only sports writer, photographer.
Yeah.
You took your little jack of all trades.
Yeah, and some videography mixed into my background too. It really is this profession. You have to really kind of do a little bit of everything.
Now, forgive me. You've been on this show before. What number is this now?
At least twice, maybe 3 times.
This might be the third. Yeah, this might be at least the third with me, because I think we talked. Or maybe, I think we talked fall, or maybe winter, spring, and now we're talking fall.
Yeah.
School previews. So
I can't remember if there was one mixed in. This maybe third or fourth time. Yeah.
And we had to say, we're mentioning school, and this is we joked in the office that Mark is one of the busier guys in the sports writing industry, and he added something else to his repertoire, so to speak. So what are you planning to do in the fall here, Mark?
Giving teaching a shot now.
Nice.
I live over in Pennsylvania, and LaSalle College High School. It's a mouthful to say sometimes.
Yeah.
But they contacted me. They wanted to start this thing called Professionals in Residency. So I'm just an adjunct teacher, teach one class. It's an intro to multimedia journalism. And so these kids will take that class, and they'll take like a photography class and graphic arts, things like that. There's all kinds of different electives that they can take. So it's a small class. It's only about once a week for me, but I'm super excited because these kids elected to have this class.
Right. Yeah.
So
they're engaged.
Yeah.
And what's your hope? I guess like we don't need the syllabus, obviously, because I'm sure that's still being worked on.
It's on this computer somewhere.
Yeah. But what's what are your goals for the kids? What are you hoping they get out of the class?
Just some real life experience. From a classroom. It sounds weird, but that's why I'm brought in. I've never taught before,
right.
So they just wanted somebody that I've been doing this for 20 years or so. So somebody that's been out in the field and has covered sports and news, and I have a really wacky resume when you look at it. Of some of the things I've done, because when I used to work for the Burlington County Times, I used to cover the military base over there. So I would take trips with the Army out to Oklahoma and watch helicopter training and stuff. And I also did work doing roller derby.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
as a just a volunteer sort of thing. So I've been all over the place. I never say no to anything.
Right. So I guess lesson 1 is don't worry about your resume, because you could throw it away because you're going to do pretty much everything. Right?
Sure. Yeah. So, I just want some of these bright minds to just kind of let them peek in the mind a little bit and just ask as many questions as they want. That's the main thing.
Right.
That's what journalism is. It's asking questions.
Yeah.
So there's no dumb ones.
Well, that was a question, then maybe that's my answer. I was going to ask you, do you have a guiding philosophy of journalism? Is it that asking questions? Is it that curiosity, or is it something else?
Yeah, it's a little bit of what I had said is, asking a lot of questions and taking on any assignment, whether it's in your comfort zone or out. I mean, I was a very shy person before I started doing this. Right. And journalism makes you come out of your shell because, you got to hit the ground running and just go up to strangers and talk to them. And not only just ask them questions you might have on a notepad, but, once you hit on a question, you got to know how to follow it up and really just strike a good conversation with somebody and get what you need.
And so that begs a question. I mean, you mentioned like you're really hoping for the questions and the practical side of it, right?
Yeah.
How have you kind of prepared yourself for the teaching aspect of it? Because I feel like there's times where I have this struggle. I work with our advancement directors at all of our elementary schools to do marketing stuff, and they'll ask me a question, and I just in my mind, you just do it.
Yeah.
You sign in and you do the thing because I just do it every day, right? That's part of my work. So have you thought about how to kind of translate that to lessons and things of that nature?
I seem to wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. I mean, it's one of those things I'm not going to be comfortable until I start doing it.
Yeah.
But luckily we had a few orientation days for new teachers, and they're great over there. It is such a happy place to work. Everybody's very excited. There's a lot of momentum with that school, and just fantastic alumni that are just pouring resources into the school. So it's really a great place to go. And they kind of, I went into those orientation days with one thought of how I was going to do things, and then took a look around at the technology and how other people do things. And I'm like, whoa, I was wrong. So, I shifted it. And at the time of this recording, my first day is tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's going to probably be a sleepless night tonight.
I was just going to say, it's going to be walking around just kind of aimlessly until the alarm clock goes off.
Right.
I think you just mentioned the new teacher, orientation that you had, and then as I mentioned that we just had ours yesterday, and you do see that enthusiasm, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that we do at ours that I think is just wonderful to watch and to see is Dr. Watson, our superintendent, stands up and has everybody stand up if they're a part of a certain category, right? Mm-hmm. Is this your first time in education? Is this your first time in Catholic education? Is this are you coming from a completely different career? And you see all these different groups kind of stand up. And I think that adds a level of comfort, right? Because you're not the only one. This is everyone doing this together. And you see so many people instantly. I mean, I think that's why they're going to be good teachers, because instantly you start talking to the person next to you. Yeah. Dr. Sarah Caring's in our office, who's our assistant superintendent for school services, did a wonderful presentation on some of just procedural stuff. And she put these scenarios in, and she would ask the question, she'd give you the scenario and ask the question. And instantly she'd say, okay, talks amongst yourselves at your tables, and then just, they just start, and then it takes a while to get you back, right? Yeah. Because you start to feel comfortable, you're talking to people, and then hopefully that makes the first day slightly better. Yeah. Still a sleepless night, but once the first kid's hand is raised and you're off and running, right?
Yeah. Like I said, that orientation day was perfect because it was I'm not the only one that's first time teaching either. Yeah. There were other teachers from other schools, sure, but there were a bunch of us that were first timers, and seeing them not know what they're doing either, right. And sharing those experiences, it was really helpful, and they did a lot of things to kind of open us up and tell stories. And
now I got to ask, because in some circles journalism can get a bad name with what's are you going to touch on the ethics of journalism at all? And
there's a few weeks planned on that.
Oh, good. Can you what is a credible source?
Yes.
Or what can you spoil some of your...
We're going to grab our notebooks. We're going to do a test lesson here, right, Pete? We're going to,
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that specifically, because a lot of this stuff I'm going to be diving in, because, I'm an old schooler. I've been 20 years now, and, one of the things that they're telling us is, it was actually funny because they're telling us to use AI. I was
just going to ask about that.
Creating our syllabuses and things like that. They're like, it's okay to use that and, sculpt your syllabus around it. It's a good source to use, but you also have to make sure that what these kids are turning in is original work. And there's a lot of policing that's going to go on with that.
Gosh, I remember on our day, we just had to worry about Spark Notes and Cliff Notes, and now it's AI, and it's so
Well, I remember, and I'm going to forget the name of the program. but I'll just describe it because and maybe it'll come to me. But it was when I was in college, there was this new, because the web, the internet, right, was just sort of starting to be a source that you could use legitimately for source material. And, plagiarism was becoming a thing because it was harder to search than finding a book or seeing the person's thing. And you had to submit, I think it was called Blackboard, was the online site.
I think I do remember Blackboard, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you would upload your paper and it could identify, I guess, pull sort of a rudimentary AI, setup where it could find the sources and see if it was truly sourced correctly, if it was plagiarism. And I remember they would show you as a prep, in the class, just if it was all red, if it was all plagiarized. Mm-hmm. And I just have to imagine, and I know from our office that AI has now been a part of that. Like they have to consider that because the kids could just type in something and it could pretend to be their work. Sure. And how do you differentiate that? Or I guess, to Pete's original question, if it's a true source or not, right? How do you first, teach them to go up to someone like you're saying? That's one skill, but then are they credible? Are you just filling in the blank? You may remember this. Was it not Jason Blair, but it was it Stephen Glass? Yeah. Well, Jason Blair was the New York Times one that was like a issue with sources. And I think the other one was Stephen Glass or something of that nature where he was making them up, or there was some version of that person, but they were never talked to and stuff. So in terms of, are you going to try to do things like that? Have like real world examples of this is proper, this isn't, this is,
for sure. We'll show them certain things. A lot of the work that they'll be doing is going to be based around school, right? Because a lot of their grade is going to be contributing to like the school newspaper and the newsletter and things like that. So, they're going to have original stories.
Yes, right.
They're not going to be able to find those.
That's true.
But it is funny because I met with the principal, Jim Fike over there, who is a Father Judge grad like myself. Okay.
We're careful, Pete.
We are
I'm St. Joe's prep.
Oh, okay.
Here comes the fighting.
Well. But all us Father Judge guys are invading over there. But and talking to him, he's like, they put out a story last year that had me quoted in it, and I didn't say any of the stuff. They thought it was a make-believe story that we were just doing for class.
So and
they wound up publishing it.
Wow.
So, we have to explain to these kids that what they're doing, it counts. It's going to get out there.
Yeah, and just the art of fact-checking, right? Yeah. Like you're going to, as the editor, you're going to call to see if that quote came from that person, right? Or that fact came from that person. I have to ask you, Pete, because we started by talking about books, and Mark, we'll make it a roundtable thing. But favorite sports writer, or I know you read like the American sports writing of a particular year, right?
Well, the inspiration for writing, and I still feel in my heart, maybe I want to start a baseball blog one of these days. Okay. But Jason Stark. I read his rumblings and grumblings growing up religiously from the Philadelphia Inquirer every morning. And it's funny, so I'll just say, my friend's father worked for the Star Ledger up in Newark.
Yep.
And during the 2006, I think it was NLCS, Mets-Dodgers, they needed photo runners. So Paul and I went up there. We did photo running from the press box to the field, or field press box, the whole game. So we were on the field with Noma. He was a Dodger at the time. I think Beltran might have been on the Mets. My buddy was a big Mets fan. He was like going crazy. I'm a Philly guy. Yep. It's okay. The coolest thing for me was meeting Jason Stark in the tunnel there.
Yeah,
and all it was, "Hi, Jason," and he said hi. And that was it. But still, it was like the coolest moment. Yeah. And then I actually met him again I met him at an event in Philadelphia. Okay. No, not Philly. Haddonfield, Haddon Memorial High School.
Okay.
They did a thing called the Chicken Runs at Midnight, which if you Google it, it has connections to the Los Angeles Angels and winning their World Series, I think, back in 2003. So Jason Stark is still my inspiration. He writes for The Athletic now. I follow him. Yep. And I guess I have to say my cousin, he's a beat writer for the New York Post. He's pretty awesome. That's awesome. Mark Sanchez, not the quarterback. But no, and so he's a pretty awesome writer. He covers the Mets and the Yankees up there, and he's just have to give a shout out to him because he's doing good work too.
That's awesome. How about you? Mark?
The one I always inspired me before I got into journalism was Bill Lyon from the Inquirer. I mean, the man was just a genius at how he wrote. And then I got to work in the field with a few people like Reuben Frank, who covers the Eagles.
Nice.
Yeah.
He taught me how to hustle. I used to run quotes for him at Eagles games and stuff like that. And so he was pretty fun to watch. And I guess Ted Solari was a guy. He covered high school sports for the Philadelphia Daily News.
Okay.
He was another just workaholic. He still has a website. He passed away a few years ago, but his website is the most jumbled but most information you'll ever find on a website. It is crazy how it's just all jammed in there. It's just the history of Philadelphia high school sports on there. Yeah. And somebody I've always worked very closely with, my buddy Joe Mason, who's the editor at the Northeast Times, the sports editor.
Yeah.
He basically taught me how to write.
There you go.
He taught me how to find that story within a kid. Don't just cover a game or anything like that. Like, find out something about the kid and move that up and make it a story.
You talked about that in the last time you had, and that's, it's funny because we in our office started talking about that storytelling element in some of the work that we're doing. And it's funny how different it can make it from, okay, here's the score and the XYZ of the plays and all of that, and the results, but those stories within this, within the story, right? Like, why? I think I just heard, it's a fictional show, but I've been watching a lot of clips of Ted Lasso. And the one really, and I haven't gotten to actually fully immerse myself in the show, but of course they're now like out on DVD and other stuff outside of the Apple Plus, world, but they had the real aggressive, former star. He's the real angry character, and he's now a coach in this season, and he's up in a press conference, and the one guy got a red card, and he says, you don't know what's going on in their head. Like, the action is probably the last part of why they did it, right? You don't know what's going on. And he says, and he relates the story. So you just never know in these moments why they're playing extra hard this time, and then you find out, those kind of things are just exciting.
And I just have to compliment you, Mark, talking about, thinking about your writing. And what I try to do is I'm curious. So I've tried to perfect the intimate personal piece. And I have to admit, I'm a little jealous because you do that so well. You pull back and, sports writers, you can hear broad, everything. You get to really get micro on these individuals, these characters. You get to know their motivations, their families. That is such an art, and I mean, it's great. Like, it's such a pleasure to read those personal. Like, it's so I can't think. Forgive me, not one doesn't pop in my head right now, but I'm just the overarching. They're just so every week. It's like, oh my gosh, you're talking about this person who's gone through this, or happened with their parents or happened with their brother. And is that like is that something you gravitate toward, or does it just find you?
A little bit of both, yeah. I mean, I always try to find it. Sometimes it's not there. Sometimes a kid feels like they shouldn't be saying certain things. But even today, I was just over at Bishop Eustace football. They had a scrimmage today, and I asked the coach who to interview. He said Mekhi Simmons. He's a senior there, the heart and soul of the team. And, he gave me great quotes about how he's a leader and 4-year player and all that stuff. And, I talked to Mekhi, and we were just talking football. And then I just asked him a simple question, like, well, what town do you live in? And he's like, well, I live over in Mount Airy. I was like, oh, Mount Airy, over in Philly.
Yeah.
That's a far ride. How do you get here? Do you drive? He's like, no. He's like, I get a ride. I'm like, well, who brings you? He's like, well, my grandmom does.
Oh my God.
And I was like, your grandmom? He's like, yeah, she's my biggest fan. And then there's the story.
Goes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I was just asking, what they talk about on
the rides,
all different things. And, she's not necessarily a sports, she wasn't an athlete herself,
right?
But, just loves seeing her grandkid play. So she's at every game. And
it's true. It's true because you just did this story we were looking at it yesterday of the young girl at Resurrection that was in the Junior Olympics, and sort of just that. Yeah, I mean, there's some basic ABCs of that story, right? She's a talented runner, but just delving into her work ethic and how it translates to the classroom. Those are always great connections, I feel like, for people to read and remember that they're student athletes, right? And that they have these unique kind of things. It's just, I remember again, when I was in high school, my dad and I had that, talking about the ride thing, my dad and I had this thing where I would run in the morning before school started, just a couple of miles, and just to add to my mileage and work out, and stretch before the day. And he would drive in with me because the middle school that he was teaching at was right across campus, so we'd park at my, spot. He'd walk over and I'd go for my run on the trail by our school, and he would just watch me and, watch me go. And then he'd get into his classroom, and that was always those just cool times. Right. And then the kids remember that. That was what he told you, right? Suddenly he once you got him going on that was it. Right. So, well, we want to get into some of the stuff for the fall, because we've got the fall stuff coming up and back to school. So, I'll make it dealer's choice on which sport you want to start with, because we were talking a little bit before we started recording that there's a lot of really good girls sports this fall. So I'll let you pick the sport you want to talk about first, and then we'll get rolling.
Oh, you're making me pick favorites now. All right, well.
No one has a favorite, but we really do.
Well, we're going to go with football first, just because they start a little bit earlier than everybody. They're into their season. Like, they start this week mostly or next week, whether they have a week 0 game. So a lot of scrimmages are happening where some of the other sports are just starting to practice. Yeah. So it's tough to get a state championship out of South Jersey, because there's so many, they've changed the way they do things now. They play further into an actual state champion now, and the North Jersey schools are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
They're bigger and stronger somehow. I don't know, but
it's the New York water,
right? But there's a lot of good things happening here, and we could go to the other side of the state with Holy Spirit and St. Augustine. They're perennial powerhouses. They, Holy Spirit was 9-2 last season. Great season. St. Augustine was 8-3. They have what's called like the Holy War every year, where they play each other. So that's always a big game. And both those teams should be in the mix again. Last year, Paula 6 was a really nice surprise. They went 9-2, and they're really starting to play tougher competition now. And a 9-2 record, if they would have posted that a few years ago, you'd have been like, so what? Last year they played some really big schools. And they're doing a nice job now. So really looking forward to seeing what they're doing over there. And then I was, like I said, Bishop Eustace today. Last year they went 4-4, and it's really deceiving because they had 2 forfeit wins or 2 forfeit losses in there.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So, they had a pretty good team, but they didn't have enough kids to play a few games. So that was a huge problem. There was some injuries, a little bit of a low turnout. They have a new coach this year, Sal Reccabaldo. He is a Hall of Famer from that school. He played baseball and football. So, a guy with a lot of pride now behind. He has the whistle. And, it's starting to change the culture a little bit. There's some more kids. They're up to about like 30 or so, which is still low, but for football. Yeah. But, they can compete. And they look pretty good today. They were playing against St. Joe's Hamilton. Okay, yeah. And they won the scrimmage, if you want to, for what it's worth. Yeah. And, it should be interesting. They, Mackay, who I talked to, he says, I think we can go undefeated. He's confident. I
love the confidence. Yeah.
So if they can keep the numbers up and avoid some injuries, they'll be a fun team to watch this year.
And I have to ask, because again, you mentioned like sort of the powerhouse, and I know Jersey is not the football state, probably, right? I mean, we could talk about Texas and California and some of these other ones that have, but I always, whenever you read stuff or whenever you watch, these big schools, one loss can be the end of the season, right? And you mentioned 2 of them were 9-2. I mean, how much is that important, I guess, down here, or translating to the new style of sort of state champ, where it's not a lot of games, right? And everyone counts. So how important for these coaches is each win? And if there's a loss, how do they kind of, have you asked any of them how they come back from that, knowing that could be a ranking in their system, in their season.
I mean, if anybody can explain the PowerPoint system, please,
we'll get them on the line.
Yeah, because they change. I mean, sometimes it's easy to understand, but then they change it every couple of years, and you just, it all kind of runs together, and you forget. So basically, it comes down to you have to play tougher schools. Okay. You can't just load your schedule with a bunch of 0-8 teams, because then you might not even make the playoffs with them.
And you could be 10-0, but it's just not a good score. Right?
We actually had that situation when I was at the Burlington County Times with Riverside up there. They're just like a real small school. And then just one year, that happens with the small schools a lot. One year, you just get a boom of a senior heavy class, and it makes all the difference where you got all your athletes, all the stars are aligning.
Right.
But you play these 2-year cycles, so they still had a weak schedule that year.
Yeah.
And they went 7-3, and they didn't make the play. They hadn't made the playoffs in so long, and we're like, they're going to do it this year, and they're 7-3, and then they still didn't make it.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame. So you have to find that balance,
right? Because you said that about Paul VI. They were 9-2 and had a stronger schedule, so that helps.
Yeah, I want to say their one regular season last year might have been St. Augustine, which is
I was going to say
it's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. How about on the field hockey side? I mean, I know that's always a perennial fall sport for everyone.
Camden Catholic, you got to start there. Yeah. They're back-to-back state champions. They always seem to lose these great players, and then they just have these amazing players returning, and one pops up out of nowhere. Last year it was Sophia Stasi. She was a freshman and came in and scored 30-something goals, and it was like their leading scorer.
Yep.
It was just insane. And it's not like, where did she come from? She had an older sister on the team.
Right,
she's homegrown, So they're going to be great again. Bella Moore, she's another top prospect. I think she's a senior now, or maybe she's only a junior.
Okay.
She's going to go to a big Division I college too. They did lose a lot of their goalie and their central defender, but they always, Coach Mark Vitesse seems to just find ways to plug these holes and put new talent in there. And I'm seeing a lot of the commitments starting. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'm not going to name them all. But you're starting to see all these girls from Camden Catholic start committing to Rutgers and places like that. Rutgers is really diving into the Camden Catholic pipeline lately.
Yeah, you mentioned about, and one of the things I'm always impressed about is they have this culture where they can keep winning year after year. They have the excellence, and it seems like, okay, you got seniors graduating, but you got freshmen, sophomores stepping up. What of the coaches have you talked to told you? Has it been field hockey? How do coaches, how do staff preach that? What is excellence to them? How do they engender that success?
Yeah, I mean it starts with the coaches themselves. I mean, if you're just the coach that doesn't put in the time and effort to really get to know these kids and really become a part of it, then they're not going to buy in. And that's the great thing about these schools that we cover is they really do have some great coaching staffs. So, like I said, the Vitesses, I hope I'm saying the name right. But
we'll give you a pass. I don't think any of us would say them right.
Yeah, they're very big into the club scene as well, and with these Team USA tryouts and things like that. They're just so heavily involved with these national circuits that kids really want to play at Camden Catholic. They know they're going to get a real shot to be in the limelight. Yeah. But some of these other schools, they're doing a great job of building their programs.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and you say, because I've experienced this firsthand, so I know for sure. You mentioned Eustis's their participation for the football team. There's 30 guys on the field, and you're like, that's not enough. Yeah. I can tell you half the reason that Camden Catholic has such a pipeline is because it's an army that's on their team from freshman to the varsity, because I was at one of the games, and I mean the bench is fence lengths wide on the field, and it's incredible because they can just reload, and you do say, I mean, I am of the generation, that the AAU stuff wasn't as prevalent, right? I mean, the Rise was starting at that time, but it wasn't as important. Your club team was your local team, and you went to high school, and, if you were that good, there were places for it, but it was a heavier investment. But now it's what you have to do to get really strong in the game, right? And find the right coaches too, and keep that up. So if you're going to go that way, find the places that help make you stronger.
Yeah, and then the non-publics do have that advantage,
Right.
where they can pull from wherever. Where
Yep.
if you're a public school, you have to go to where you live.
Right.
But the thing that has to be the draw is getting a great education as
Yes.
well, and that's what these schools do. So
Yeah.
it's a double win.
Yes, yeah,
It really
for
is.
sure. The one that's near and dear to me every year is cross country. Yeah, there's a part of me every day I go out to exercise and to walk that I want to start running, and then my knees tell me no, just stay slow. You're going to be okay. But what's going on in the cross country space?
I don't know. All I know is we're not going to be writing any more Shaylin McNally stories.
Yes, right, yeah.
She has graduated.
yeah.
She's on to Bucknell. So, what a fantastic athlete
Yeah,
she was.
that's incredible.
I really haven't dove into the cross country, who the players are yet.
Yeah.
That usually doesn't kind of show until like a month in. You
Yeah.
really start seeing the times and who's
Right.
doing what. So
And the bigger events where they're all racing against each
Right.
other. That's where they truly come out.
Yeah, team-wise, I mean, we had Bishop Eustace win a
Yeah,
state championship
last year, yeah.
So, I mean, that'll be fun to see what they got coming back this year.
With, again, a relatively small team, even for cross country. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, I think.
But they were young, too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They were smaller, and they brought up a bunch of guys that probably would have taken a year and not scored for them, right? You know? How about you mentioned that one of the coaches is new, with Eustace, and I noticed your other article that's in the upcoming paper was about not only new coaches, but a lot of them are alumni. So what's the landscape on the new coach scene?
Well, the funny thing is I'm starting to run into all these athletes that I covered for the Burlington
Yes.
County. They're now invading our schools and taking over there.
Yeah.
Just to kind of jump around, but Camden Catholic has a new volleyball coach,
Okay.
and it's Julia Gianetti. And I was like, man, I know that name. Where do I know that name from? So I did a quick Google search, and the first thing that popped up was a tweet that I had sent 6-7 years ago about a story I wrote about her. She was at Lenape High School, and she plays 5 different instruments, musical instruments, or maybe more by now. Who knows?
One-man band.
I'm going to have to catch up with her.
Yeah.
But I was cracking up laughing that I was like, yep, I definitely do know her. So she's the new coach over at Camden Catholic. And then in writing that story, Holy Spirit has a new field hockey coach.
Yep.
That's Kylie Mitchell. And then I looked at her bio from when she was at, I can't remember where she went to college. I want to say Stockton.
Okay.
And it says she was Seneca High School. And I was like, wait a minute, that puts her in the range.
Yeah.
And then I had these videos saved of when I covered them in the state championship game. And there she was. She was the goalie. So I've covered her before.
That must be, it's like a moment where like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this. You know, I have this
for as
track
long-
record.
Yeah.
And the cherry on top is the new athletic director over at Camden Catholic. He
Yes.
started last year, Jim McHugh. He used to be an athletic trainer at Rancocas Valley High School.
Oh, no way. So you knew him too?
So I did this like 4-part video on athletic trainers showing like what they did.
Yeah.
And he was in that. So I sent him a congrats tweet message when he got the job. I can't wait to run into him again. So yeah, all my Burlington County people are floating down here.
And did I see there were a couple of Gloucester Catholic new coaches too?
Yeah, we really focused on the new girls soccer coach.
Yeah.
Eliza Varela. And she's a former player
Yep.
from about 10 years ago or so. She went to Monroe College and then transferred to Boston College.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she got to play some big time.
Yeah.
Got her old school colors back.
Yeah, that's
Purple
right.
and gold.
Yeah.
Or
Not
maroon and gold.
Yeah,
sorry.
maroon and gold. Yeah.
So she's back, and
Okay.
she's really excited to take over a program that was already doing well.
Yeah.
So, she's not starting from scratch there, and they're going to be a fun team to watch just because, they're already building on some momentum there.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
she's taken over there. Staying on Gloucester Catholic, they have a new tennis coach, and they have a new field hockey coach as well. And then if you want to dive into the winter time, they have a new hockey coach.
Yes. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Gaudreau had a tough year last year. Johnny Gaudreau's brothers.
Yeah. I saw both of them over the summer. I got fortunate enough to play in there in Johnny's memorial scholarship.
Yeah, I covered that last year.
Yeah, golf outing. Yeah, it's always a fun time. That was where I've always watched Pete can attest to this because we talk. Not only do we talk books, but we talk sports docs and Netflix specials and things from time to time. But watching all of the stuff, the All or Nothing series that Amazon did, and they did like the Maple Leaves, and you see these guys, off of the skates, and some of them are still big hulking guys, but how sort of small relative like to what your image of a hockey player Johnny is, because he's just so fast, and that's his skill set, So it was, I pointed out to my father and a couple of the people that were playing. I'm like, that's him. They're like, no way. And I'm like, no, that's him. It's the skates and the pads, man. And that's and he just lets it fly. You mentioned two or three sports that we hadn't mentioned, so we should chat about them, but volleyball, and I imagine that's Paul VI world, and everyone else is living in it right now, kind of thing.
That's exactly right. But before we get to that, Mike, what did you shoot in this tournament? Or it was a scramble, I guess?
Yeah, it was a scramble, and so it was myself, and it was, as my dad put it, it was me and three guys over 65. So I think we ended only 2 over for the day, which for all of us playing was pretty exceptional. But when you play in a scramble, as you've probably played before, we're close to the bottom just because that is, you have the advantage you have the advantage in a scramble to play the best person's golf ball each hole.
Each shot
at each hole. So I might not be the best guy off of the tee, but someone can drive it 200 yards, but I'm a better iron player. So my iron shot's the one we play from that guy's distance. And so you tend to get lower scores, because you can birdie a lot easier and you can utilize everybody's skills. So and
you can cheat a lot easier.
Exactly. And as my uncle said, cause it's, he said, my uncle's one of the other guys playing, and he just said to somebody, it's going to be 4 baseball players from 2014's Gloucester Catholic team that are going to win this thing. So we don't even have to worry about it. So it was a good time, but we're nowhere in contention.
Good. Okay.
But on the volleyball side of things, I know Paula Six is, probably just reloading again, much like Camden Catholic's field hockey. But is there other up and coming teams?
Yeah, well, to get to Paula Six first, it's almost like a carbon copy of Camden Catholic field hockey.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like Dan Chung, the coach there, he's very involved in the club circuit, and he's just got a program there that's just amazing, and he's one of the most intense coaches you'll find too. Yeah. He's all about it. I mean, for volleyball being what's usually like a pretty cheery kind of sport, it's because it's not a contact sport,
right?
Yeah.
So it's a little lighter usually, but man, they're a machine over there at Paul VI. So I'm gonna try to get to them a little earlier than I usually do this year because Dan lets me know when he hasn't seen me yet. I'm a little scared of him.
Yeah, I've met him, and that is valid. Yeah. Good guy, but intense is a good word.
But they have so many good kids coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw Megan Evans had just committed to UConn, so I mean, and that's a real good program to go to. So I mean, they're constantly sending kids to Division I programs, and there's nothing wrong with Division II or III or whatever, but I mean, that just shows the talent level of this team. So, but volleyball's a tricky one. I mean, you can play great all season, and then it's best 2 out of 3 sets in New Jersey. So if you have a bad set or two, it's over quick.
Yeah.
Things can get away from you very, very fast. So you would hope with Paul VI, with being in the state championship so many times, winning it a few years ago, that they have that confidence and that experience that can kind of guide them through a little, because you're going to go have your ups and downs.
Yeah.
But man, it's a scary sport when you're a favored team, because it's upset city for that. You know?
And they're bringing their best.
Yeah,
the teams you're playing are bringing their best.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm a novice in volleyball because I tried watching the Olympic volleyball.
I was just going to say that.
I couldn't understand it. Like I don't know. I was like, wait, this is how it scores? It's like almost felt like tennis.
Yes.
But I wasn't sure. Is that?
It's rally.
It's a rally. Curve, I guess.
It's rally scoring, right? Now I don't know. Is high school rally scoring? I know the Olympics were like. Where you get a point
on either side, whichever that's called.
Yeah, I think I think they call it rally scoring, but it's
the other way is side out scoring.
Where it's every point is up for grabs.
Yeah,
right?
it used to be you had to be serving to get a point, and then they just had these games that never went anywhere.
Yeah, that never ended. Yeah, that's why like you see. I mean, I watched. I was gonna bring it up as sort of as the tail end, so we could still do that. But just on that point, I was watching a lot of the volleyball because I find that you talk about like the intensity. Because you think it's this casual thing, you do on the beach with friends, in the summertime, and then you see.
You think of Top Gun, right?
Yeah. You're seeing plays and you're seeing coaches and they're yelling, and the guys are all moving around, and the guys and girls you see and they fake the spikes. I mean, I would not compete for very long in that. World.
I had a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, who's now a religious sister in Nashville, but she was a star volleyball player at Rowan. I think Rowan, or she went to Loyola. Nina Kimioni, does that name sound familiar? I don't know. Anyway, so now she's a sister Lily Ann in Nashville, but she was still playing. She was playing competitively in tournaments after she graduated, and she became a youth minister out in PA. But she was telling me a story. It was the year that changed her life because. Not only did other things happen, one of the big deals that happened was she went up for a serve and came down and she tore her ACL.
Yeah.
And so that was a big deal. And like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Any sport can be dangerous.
Absolutely. Well, that in the one U.S. men's match, like the guy got hit and was, taken out for, I think, a whole set, and the U.S. came back because he was out, and and he eventually came back in, and they were able to come back. But that, it was like instantly, and it's a volleyball. I mean, again, we have this vision of it, right? But that's coming at a high speed, and they're moving, and they twist an ankle, a knee. I mean, any of those things, at that high level, And then you mentioned tennis. Now, is girls tennis fall?
Yes, girls tennis is in the fall. The boys play in the spring.
Yep.
It's another one that they do start a little bit earlier than everybody, but it's really it's hard to grasp because you only got a few kids on the team. They graduate, you don't know who's coming back. So, it was fun last year. I got to cover Wildwood Catholic and Holy Spirit play a match.
Okay,
it was great. I mean, they had some really enthusiastic coaches and players out there. So it's a sport that doesn't get a whole lot of coverage, but it was really fun, and hopefully we'll get to see a little more tennis. Maybe when the tournaments come around or something like that,
And then I think the last one that I'm thinking in my head is soccer, right? So boys and girls soccer. What's the landscape looking there?
Well, boys soccer, I got to see St. Augustine last year, and they were. I want to say I actually saw them lose, and they went like 16-2. So they're proud.
So they don't want you there much.
It was a team from like Maryland or something that they played, but that just shows the type of schedule that they play each year. So soccer's another tricky one. It's one of those low scoring games that when you get the playoffs and there's no score or a tie game and it goes to a shootout, it's anybody's game sort of thing. So you can have some upsets in soccer, and that's unfortunately what happened last year. So they return a lot of kids. Alex Clark was their leading scorer last year, 17 goals.
Wow.
They'll be looking at him big time this year. The team on this side to look for is Paul VI. They've been very good the last few years. Actually, a St. Augustine coach, Coach Pernice. He's
over here now.
He started last year.
Okay.
Real good guy, real good coach too. I mean, they've been blessed with some great coaches over here, really.
Really,
So,
we're fortunate to have some really good coaches.
So Paul VI went 10-6-3 last year.
Okay,
season for them. They're looking to build on that. One of the other things to watch is Holy Spirit. Didn't have a team a couple years ago. I think it had a little like COVID ripple effect to it. So they didn't have the numbers the one year. They came back last year. Didn't win a game, but you got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere, yeah.
So they have a new coach this year, and just looking to start building some momentum out there. And get that program rolling again.
Well, that's great. Well, we still got a couple minutes, and I want to get back to the Olympics conversation because I got so many thoughts on that. But we're excited to see the rest of your outlooks throughout. In the paper throughout the year. Always love the athletes of the month. So everyone look out for that. But let's as we're starting to wrap up today, got to talk Olympics. How much did you watch, and what was your favorite sport?
I don't know if it was my favorite sport, but my favorite storyline was the men's gymnastics.
Okay, yeah.
It was early on in the in there when I was probably paying attention the most.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, I have 2 young kids,
Yeah.
so you get to watch when you can. Most of the time, it's Daniel Tiger or Mickey Mouse that's dominating the TV. So you have to wait till the kids go to bed,
Right.
watch some Olympics.
Yeah.
But the story, the way they told the story about that team, really well done by who had the rights to that, NBC.
NBC, yeah.
So just it made you really interested in that. Like you wanted these guys to succeed.
Yeah, you
So
did.
that was really fun to watch.
And as a kind of a somewhat of a surprise on paper,
Yeah,
right?
a little bit.
I mean, a little bit. I mean, they knew they were going to potentially medal, but it was a surprise on how well they did.
Yeah.
How about you, Pete?
I don't know. I watched because I watched a bit of sprint on Netflix with the runners, so I did watch some of the running, and especially the women. The Union Catholic grad, I think she was grad, Cindy McLaughlin Lavroni. Yeah, she just a machine.
Yeah,
broke her own world record again, and then also the relay. Yeah. Incredible relay for the 4 of them, she and Gabby Thomas and 2 others. I was just, I think it turned out, same thing with you, Mark. I watched what I could. Yeah. I watched, when I say watched what I could, it was, okay, I'm available this night. What Olympics are on? So that's just kind of what caught it. But just amazing athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. And then some of the gymnastics too, and just the dedication, and you read their stories and how hard they worked. Katie Ledecky.
Oh, yeah.
And swimming, that's something too, because I was a swimmer before I got swimmer's ear. And that's something I follow.
Yeah.
And it just, that's, wow, those individuals are fish.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Streaming through the water.
Yeah. Talking about Sydney McLaughlin.
Yeah.
What was it? What's her full name now?
I think it's Sydney McLaughlin Lavroni. That's what I've heard. Yeah, that's her husband's name.
Okay, yeah, because in high school it was Sydney McLaughlin, and I did have the pleasure of getting to watch her compete one time. It was the meet of champions. So it's all the state champions from all the different groups. They all came together at, I think it was Northern Burlington High School. And I wasn't particularly covering her. I was covering the kids in Burlington County. We had our list of kids that made it, and I was doing video at the time. And then it was like this hush came over the crowd because it was time for Sydney to run.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you're talking about the best athletes in the state, and she just blew them all out of the water. I mean, it was not even close. It looked like a JV meet, the way she just powered out in front, running the hurdles, and it was just, oh my God, it was special to watch.
Yeah. At my time, I'll never forget. I don't know if she made it to the national level. I know she did in certain realms, but when I was in high school, it was Erin Donahue, who was a runner for Haddonfield High School, and leaps and bounds, in the middle distances and you could tell because it was her, this far out, and then the rest of the group, and she was hitting some record time. So to see someone, get to the Olympics is incredible. I have to say, and I know this is something that you in your work, you mentioned social media as an important part of your work and the sort of the multimedia. And I was excited on how well Snoop Dogg did at the Olympics. That man was everywhere. He is well into his 50s, and he was at every sport and just enjoying himself. He took that correspondent, position to the extreme, and loved every minute of it, which was just this classic watch. I mean, I made sure I liked all of the U.S. Olympic team stuff on social media, NBC, and just every Instagram post is where is he today, and all the one of the other things that I think is always so cool about the Olympics is watching the different athletes go to the other sports. So gymnastics caught everybody, and so the men's national basketball team, who are these multi-millionaires, are sitting there cheering on these gymnastics stars, and you saw it in the swimming, and it was interesting. I listened to something that said how it was actually relative to how successful they've been, that how sort of the poor showing of the men's swimming, in terms of the medals and things, and how they're, and you think about, we look at it and go, they did great, we got medals and they performed well. And no, this is not the team, you know, but those are the professionals that know what they're at. So yeah, I'm interested for volleyball and some of the other sports. Really, whenever there's an Olympic year and there's so much coverage and there's docs and things on social media, how much interest comes, you know, after that, you know, for that kind of stuff.
I watched a little table tennis too.
Oh yeah,
I did. There was intramural table tennis in high school, but the table tennis, that was just that's just amazing.
Another level. Yeah.
Like
the volleyball. I mean, they were just this small little table. They're running around and hitting it so hard and with spin and with curve, and it was incredible. Well, we're just about time here, Pete. I had a wonderful time working with you today.
Thank you.
We're going to have to absolutely do it again. And Mark, as always, thank you so much for coming on. We'll make sure we have you on again. We'll talk winter stuff,
absolutely,
if not before. And we hope everyone checks out the Catholic Star Herald, our back to school edition that's coming out, or will be up by this recording, and some of the other great coverage we have. And for me, you know, check out South Jersey Catholic Schools. We've got seats available, and we want you to become part of our community. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next week.